She said she couldn't hold it in anymore. And the Cowboys' next move changed everything. The desert planet of Arkan 7 was known for two things: endless red sand and stubborn people who refused to leave it. Small settlements stood far apart, connected only by dusty trails and old communication towers that barely worked anymore. Among those settlements was a quiet frontier town called Red Hollow. Sheriff Cade Lawson rode slowly into town just before sunset. He wore a long coat made from weatherproof fabric, but it looked like something from an old Western film. His wide hat shaded his eyes from the harsh light of the twin suns. People called him a cowboy, even though he carried advanced tech on his belt alongside his old revolver. Cade preferred silence over talk. He watched more than he spoke, and today he felt something strange in the air. As he tied his horse outside the general store, he noticed the streets were too quiet. Usually, children ran between buildings while traders argued loudly near the supply carts. But today, people stayed indoors, peeking through windows as if expecting trouble. Inside the store, old Myra greeted him with a worried smile. "You came back fast," she said. "Trouble?" Cade asked. She nodded slowly. "A girl arrived this morning, looks scared, says she needs help, been asking for you." Cade removed his gloves and leaned against the counter. "Where is she?" Myra pointed toward a table in the corner. A young woman sat there, gripping a metal cup with both hands. Her clothes were dusty and torn, like she had traveled far without rest. Her dark hair fell across her face, hiding eyes that looked tired and afraid. Cade walked over quietly and sat across from her. She looked up quickly, surprised by his calm presence. "You're the sheriff?" she asked. "That's what they call me," he replied. She hesitated as if unsure how to begin. Then she whispered, "I can't hold it in anymore." Cade did not interrupt. He simply waited. "My name is Lyra," she continued, "and something is coming to this town." Cade had heard many warnings before: smugglers, raiders, storms, but something in her voice felt different. It was not panic. It was urgency mixed with exhaustion. "What kind of something?" he asked. She swallowed hard. "The mining company, they found something under the canyon. Not a machine, not a creature exactly, something else." Cade's eyes narrowed slightly. Lyra leaned closer. "It changes people, slowly. They stop acting like themselves." He remembered the strange reports he had heard recently: miners quitting suddenly, arguments turning violent without reason, workers staring at nothing for hours. "You saw this yourself?" he asked. She nodded. "I worked there, engineering team." "We opened a chamber deep underground. Inside was a glowing sphere. It reacts to thoughts." Cade stayed silent. "At first it seemed harmless," she said. "Then people started hearing voices, not real voices, more like feelings pushing into their minds." The room felt colder as she spoke. "I tried to warn them," she continued, "but the company wants to study it. They don't care about the danger." Cade leaned back slightly. "Why come here?" "Because you're the only one people trust," she said quickly. "And because they're coming after me." Before he could ask more, the door of the store opened sharply. Two armored security officers stepped inside. Their uniforms carried the mining company's symbol, a silver star surrounded by gears. Their helmets hid their faces, but their movements were precise and controlled. Myra stepped back nervously. The taller officer scanned the room and stopped when he saw Lyra. "There you are," he said coldly. "You need to return with us." Lyra's hands shook. Cade stood slowly, placing himself between her and the officers. "This is a peaceful town," he said calmly. "You bring trouble somewhere else." "She is company property," the officer replied. Cade's expression did not change. "People aren't property." The second officer moved forward. "We don't want problems, Cowboy. Step aside." Outside, thunder rolled across a clear sky, even though no clouds were visible. The lights flickered briefly. Cade felt the hairs on his neck rise. Something was wrong. "Not happening," he said quietly. The officers exchanged a look. Suddenly, the lights inside the store dimmed, then brightened again. Lyra gasped and grabbed her chest. A faint glow appeared beneath her skin, like soft blue light flowing through her veins. "What's happening?" Myra whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "It's connected to me." The officers immediately reached for their weapons. Cade reacted faster. He stepped forward, knocking one officer's arm aside while pushing Lyra toward the back door. "Go," he said. She hesitated only a second before running. Cade blocked the officers long enough for her to escape, then followed quickly into the alley behind the store. The desert wind hit them hard. "Mount up," he said, helping her onto his horse. Behind them, security alarms began to echo through the town. As they rode toward the open desert, Lyra looked back with fear. "You don't understand," she said. "They won't stop, and the thing under the canyon, it's waking up." Cade looked toward the horizon where distant lightning flashed silently across the sky. For the first time in years, he felt something stronger than routine danger. This was not just another frontier problem. This was something that could change everything. And he had just chosen a side. The desert stretched endlessly around them as Sheriff Cade Lawson guided his horse across the open plains of Arkan 7. The twin moons had risen, casting pale silver light across the red sand. Behind them, the distant lights of Red Hollow faded into darkness. Lyra held tightly to the saddle, her breathing uneven. "They'll track us," she said quietly. Cade nodded without turning back. "I know." He had taken a longer route away from the main trails, choosing rocky terrain where scanners struggled to follow heat signatures. Years of living on frontier worlds had taught him how to disappear when necessary. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of wind and hooves breaking sand filled the silence. Finally, Cade slowed the horse near a cluster of tall stone pillars rising from the desert like ancient guardians. "We stop here," he said. Lyra slid down carefully, her legs shaking from exhaustion. Cade tied the horse and scanned the horizon. No drones visible yet, but that didn't mean they were safe. "You said the thing is connected to you," he said calmly. "Explain." Lyra hesitated, searching for the right words. "When we opened the chamber," she began, "there was a sphere floating in the air. It wasn't solid like metal or crystal. It looked alive, but not in a way we understand." She rubbed her arms as if feeling cold. "At first it reacted to our movements. Then it started reacting to thoughts. When someone felt fear, it glowed brighter. When people argued, it pulsed faster." Cade listened carefully. "I was assigned to analyze its energy," she continued. "One day I reached out to touch it. I thought it might stabilize the readings." Her voice trembled. "The moment I touched it, I felt something inside my mind, not words, more like curiosity." "And after that?" Cade asked. "It changed," she whispered. "I started feeling emotions that weren't mine. I could sense when someone nearby felt anger or sadness." She rolled up her sleeves slightly. The faint blue glow beneath her skin appeared again, flowing slowly like moving light. Cade remained calm, though he knew this was far beyond ordinary trouble. "You think it's controlling you?" She shook her head quickly. "No. I think it's trying to understand me." Before Cade could respond, a faint humming sound echoed through the night. Both turned toward the sky. 3 small lights moved silently above the horizon, company drones. Cade grabbed the reins. "We move." They rode deeper into the rocky terrain, weaving between tall formations that cast long shadows under moonlight. The drones passed overhead once, scanning, then disappeared. After another hour, they reached an abandoned ranch. The structure stood partially buried in sand, its metal walls worn by decades of storms. A broken wind turbine creaked softly nearby. "This was mine," Cade said simply. Lyra looked surprised. "You lived here before I became sheriff." Inside, the ranch was simple but sturdy. Old equipment rested in corners, and a small generator hummed to life when Cade activated it. Warm light filled the room. Lyra sat down heavily, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "You didn't have to help me," she said quietly. Cade poured water into a cup and handed it to her. "Someone asked for help," he replied. "That's enough." She watched him for a moment, studying the calm way he moved, the steady confidence in his voice. "You're not afraid," she said. "I am," he admitted. "I just don't let fear decide for me." She smiled faintly. Suddenly, the blue light beneath her skin flared brighter. She gasped and grabbed the table. "What is it?" Cade asked. "It's stronger," she said, "like it's closer." Outside, the wind stopped completely. The silence felt unnatural. Cade stepped toward the door and opened it slowly. Far away near the canyon, a faint glow rose into the sky like a distant sunrise. "The sphere," Lyra whispered. "It's waking up." The ground vibrated slightly beneath their feet. Cade closed the door. "Then we don't wait for it to come to us," he said. "We go to it." Her eyes widened. "You want to go back? If we run forever, they'll keep chasing," he said calmly. "Better to face the problem directly." Lyra hesitated. She had spent days trying to escape, but part of her knew he was right. "What if it changes you too?" she asked. Cade picked up his hat. "Then you remind me who I am." She stared at him, surprised by the trust in his voice. Outside, the wind returned suddenly, stronger than before. The sky flickered with strange lightning patterns that twisted like living shapes. As they prepared to leave, Lyra felt a strange pull toward the canyon, like an invisible thread guiding her. "It's calling," she said softly. Cade mounted the horse and extended a hand. "Then let's answer." They rode toward the glowing horizon, unaware that security forces were already moving to intercept them. Above the canyon, the sky pulsed with energy, and something ancient beneath the red sand slowly opened its awareness. The frontier world of Arkan 7 was about to change forever. And the cowboy who preferred peace had just ridden straight into the heart of the unknown. The ride toward the canyon felt longer than before. Sheriff Cade Lawson kept his eyes forward while guiding the horse through narrow paths between tall rocks. The sky above Arkan 7 looked restless. Thin lightning lines flashed silently across the darkness, as if the air itself was alive. Beside him, Lyra sat quietly, her hands gripping the saddle. The faint blue glow beneath her skin pulsed slowly, matching the strange light rising from the canyon ahead. "It's stronger now," she whispered. "I can feel it thinking." Cade did not ask what she meant. He had learned that some things were better understood through experience than explanation. As they reached the ridge overlooking the canyon, both slowed. Below them, the mining facility spread across the ground like a metal scar. Bright floodlights illuminated massive machines and temporary buildings. Company vehicles moved constantly, and armed guards patrolled every entrance. But what drew their attention most was the light rising from the center. A column of pale blue energy stretched upward into the sky, fading into the clouds. "It wasn't like this before," Lyra said softly. Cade studied the layout carefully, planning their approach. "We don't rush in," he said. "We observe first." They left the horse hidden among rocks and moved quietly toward a higher vantage point. From there, Cade could see workers moving strangely, their steps slow and mechanical, their faces blank. "They look empty," he said. "They're influenced," Lyra replied. "The sphere feeds on emotion and thought. Maybe it's pulling energy from them." Suddenly, loud voices echoed below. A group of officers surrounded a man arguing loudly near the entrance. "We need to evacuate," the man shouted. "The readings are unstable." Another officer grabbed him and forced him toward a building. Cade watched carefully. The company was losing control. "We go now," he said. Lyra nodded nervously. They moved along the edge of the facility, avoiding bright lights and cameras. Cade's experience as a frontier sheriff made him skilled at staying unseen. He timed their movements between patrol shifts, guiding Lyra through shadows and narrow passages. Inside one of the maintenance tunnels, the air felt heavy. The deeper they went, the stronger the humming sound became, a deep vibration that felt almost like a heartbeat. Lyra stopped suddenly. "It knows I'm here," she said. Cade looked at her calmly. "Then we finish this before it finishes us." They reached a large metal door leading to the court chamber. Two guards stood outside. Cade raised a hand, signaling silence. He waited until the guards turned slightly away, then moved quickly. With precise motion, he disabled their weapons and pushed them aside without causing serious harm. Lyra stared at him in surprise. "You could have hurt them." "They're not the enemy," he said simply. Inside the chamber, the air shimmered. The sphere floated in the center of the room, larger than Lyra remembered. Waves of light flowed across its surface like slow-moving clouds. The entire space glowed softly, casting long shadows on the walls. Lyra stepped forward slowly, drawn by an invisible force. The moment she entered fully, the sphere brightened. Cade felt pressure against his mind, faint memories trying to slip away, strange emotions pushing at his thoughts. He focused on something simple, the feeling of wind across open desert, the sound of hooves on sand, the quiet strength that guided him through danger. The pressure eased slightly. "It's communicating," Lyra whispered. Images flashed through her mind, stars, unknown worlds, beings made of light traveling across space. She staggered but remained standing. "It doesn't understand us," she said. "It's trying to learn." Suddenly, alarms blared. Security forces rushed into the chamber, weapons raised. "Step away from the artifact," an officer shouted. Cade slowly stepped in front of Lyra. "No one shoots," he said calmly. The officer hesitated, confused by Cade's confidence. "The artifact is unstable," Cade continued. "You fire weapons in here, you risk everything." The sphere pulsed brighter as tension rose. Lyra realized what was happening. "It reacts to emotion," she said quickly. "Fear, anger, it makes it stronger." Cade lowered his shoulders slightly, forcing himself into calm stillness. He removed his weapon and placed it gently on the ground. The guards looked uncertain. "This isn't a fight," he said quietly. "Put the weapons down." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the sphere changed color, shifting from bright blue to soft silver. The pressure in the room lessened. Some guards lowered their weapons instinctively. Lyra stepped closer to the sphere, reaching out but not touching. "We are not your enemy," she whispered. "You don't need to take control." The light responded, pulsing slowly. Images filled her mind again, curiosity, confusion, loneliness. "It's alone," she said softly. Cade stood beside her. "Then maybe it just needs to understand that it's not anymore." The sphere glowed warmly. Suddenly, energy surged through the room, causing lights to flicker. The ground shook slightly. Outside, thunder echoed. "It's changing," Lyra said. The glow beneath her skin matched the sphere's rhythm. The artifact began to shrink slowly, its light folding inward like a closing flower. Workers outside started waking from their trance, confusion replacing emptiness in their eyes. The sphere dimmed further until only a small core of light remained. Silence filled the chamber. The artifact floated quietly, no longer aggressive. Cade exhaled slowly. "Looks like you reached it." Lyra smiled faintly, though exhaustion showed on her face. "We reached it," she corrected. But before relief could settle, a loud explosion echoed from outside. The facility shook as something collapsed nearby. "They're trying to shut everything down," Cade said. Lyra looked at the small, glowing core. "It's not over yet." The explosion outside the chamber shook the walls hard enough to send dust falling from the ceiling. Warning lights flashed red and alarms echoed through the underground corridors. Sheriff Cade Lawson reacted immediately. "We need to move," he said calmly. Lyra stood near the glowing core, her eyes fixed on it. The sphere had shrunk into a smaller form, floating quietly like a sleeping star. Its light was softer now, no longer overwhelming. "They're trying to destroy the facility," she said. "The company must think they've lost control." Another explosion thundered somewhere above them. Cade picked up his hat from the ground and placed it back on his head. Even in chaos, his movements remained steady. "Can it move?" he asked, nodding toward the glowing core. Lyra hesitated. "I think it wants to stay close to me." As if responding, the small sphere drifted slowly toward her, hovering near her shoulder. Cade watched carefully but did not show fear. "Then we get it out of here before this place collapses." They moved toward the exit, but smoke already filled the corridor. Workers ran past them, confused and frightened, some shouting orders that no one followed. The influence of the artifact had faded, leaving people disoriented but free. Outside the chamber, security forces argued loudly. "Seal the lower levels," one officer shouted. "No, evacuate first," another replied. Cade stepped forward with calm authority. "Everyone out," he said firmly. "The structure isn't stable." Something in his voice made people listen. Workers began moving toward emergency exits instead of arguing. Lyra followed him, the small glowing core floating silently beside her. As they reached the surface, the canyon looked like a storm had arrived from nowhere. The sky twisted with strange lightning patterns, and wind pushed sand across the ground in violent waves. Company ships hovered above, preparing to leave. "They're abandoning it," Lyra said. Cade nodded. "Typical." Suddenly, a squad of armored officers blocked their path. "Stop," their leader ordered. "Hand over the artifact." Cade stepped forward slowly. "No one owns it," he said. "It's company property," the officer insisted. The sphere pulsed faintly, reacting to the rising tension. Lyra felt the pressure building again. "They don't understand," she whispered. Cade raised a hand slightly, signaling her to stay calm. "You fire weapons here," he told the officers, "and you risk waking something none of us can control." The leader hesitated. Around them, the ground trembled again. The canyon walls cracked, small rocks falling from above. Time was running out. Cade slowly removed his revolver and placed it on the ground, not as surrender, but as a statement. "We're leaving," he said quietly. "You can come with us, or you can stay here and argue with a collapsing mountain." For a moment, no one moved. Then another loud rumble echoed, louder than before. Fear replaced stubbornness on the officers' faces. "Fall back," someone shouted. The squad retreated toward their ship. Cade picked up his revolver again and turned to Lyra. "Let's go." They reached his horse near the ridge and rode away from the canyon just as the facility began to collapse behind them. Dust clouds rose into the sky, swallowing the metal structures piece by piece. From a safe distance, they stopped and watched. The glowing core hovered quietly beside Lyra, its light now soft and warm. "It's calm," she said. "Maybe it learned enough," Cade replied. As dawn slowly approached, the sky shifted from dark purple to golden orange. The storm faded, leaving the desert peaceful again. Workers who had escaped gathered nearby, speaking quietly, helping each other. One of them approached Cade. "What happens now?" he asked. Cade looked toward the horizon. "Now we start over," he said. The company ships disappeared into the sky, leaving the colony behind. Without the artifact's influence, people felt clearer, freer. Decisions would now belong to the settlers, not distant corporations. Lyra sat beside Cade on a rocky hill, watching the sunrise. "I thought I would never feel normal again," she said softly. "You went through something most people wouldn't survive," he replied. She smiled slightly. "And you?" she asked. "Why help someone you barely knew?" Cade thought for a moment. "Because someone once helped me when I needed it," he said. "Sometimes that's enough reason." The small sphere drifted between them, glowing brighter in the sunlight. "What will we do with it?" she asked. Cade looked at the artifact. "Not hide it," he said. "Not use it for power. We learn from it slowly." She nodded. The wind moved gently across the desert, carrying the promise of a new beginning. For the first time since arriving on Arkan 7, Lyra felt hope instead of fear. The cowboy sheriff who preferred peace had faced something beyond human understanding, and instead of fighting it, he chose patience, understanding, and trust. As they rode toward Red Hollow together, the story of the cowboy who changed the fate of an alien mind began to spread across the frontier stars. And far beyond their world, something ancient and curious continued to learn, not through control or fear, but through connection. The frontier had changed, and so had they,